Imagine this. You wake up one morning, reach for your phone before you even breathe in the day, and as your screen lights up, so does your sense of self. Notifications whisper fragments of who you are: likes, comments, new followers, the digital pulse of your existence. You scroll, not to connect, but to confirm, am I still someone? The reflection staring back from the glass isn't your face, but a digital apparition curated, filtered, optimized for validation. You don't control it anymore. It controls you. Somewhere along the way, your online persona became more real than your flesh and blood self. You spend more time refining it than understanding yourself. You speak to it, feed it, dress it with opinions, and measure its worth through numbers that flicker like holy symbols of belonging. You've built a self that never sleeps, always performing, always being seen, yet behind the performance, something feels missing, something eerily hollow. When did your digital reflection become your identity? When did the mirror stop showing you and start showing who you think you should be? You've crafted an image that smiles when you don't, preaches confidence while quietly starving for approval. You post what feels authentic, but only if it will be liked, a contradiction so subtle it feels normal. But imagine, for a moment, losing it all. The platform disappears. Your followers vanish. You, the one that existed online, dissolves into the digital void. Would you still know who you are? Or have you built your soul on a foundation of pixels, mistaking visibility for worth? What if every like was a microdose of self-deception? What if every carefully curated moment online was secretly feeding a psychological parasite, a false self that thrives on attention but starves your authenticity? Carl Jung once wrote that people would rather be whole than good. But what happens in a world that rewards the appearance of goodness over the experience of wholeness? You no longer explore who you are, you edit who you are. You no longer confess your darkness, you crop it out. You are no longer becoming, you are performing. And yet, deep down, a part of you resists. It feels the dissonance, the quiet discomfort, when the performance ends and the silence returns. That tension between the digital self and the real self holds a truth we rarely confront. Because maybe the question isn't, who are you online? But rather, who are you when no one's watching? And if you've forgotten the answer, perhaps the digital world didn't just capture your attention, it captured your soul. Led in. But how did we get here? What ancient instincts, what philosophical traps made us so eager to trade our essence for attention? To understand that, we must look beneath the surface into the psychological roots of the digital self. The desire to be seen is not new. Long before screens and algorithms, humanity yearned for recognition from gods, kings, lovers, or tribes. But what once was a longing for genuine connection has evolved into a compulsive need for visibility. Today, to exist is to be perceived. To vanish from the feed is to risk vanishing from the collective consciousness. This is the quiet terror of the digital age. Anonymity feels like death. Carl Jung warned that whatever we repress will eventually shape our destiny. Modern society, obsessed with presentation and performance, represses authenticity, and in doing so, births the shadow self of the digital world. The constructed persona that lives for approval, but hides the truth of our inner chaos. Jung's persona, the social mask we wear to adapt to society, has now been digitized and weaponized. It's no longer a subtle filter for the world, it's the world itself. Every post, every profile, every photo becomes an altar to the self we wish we were. We are no longer content to live, we must broadcast. The ancient question of, who am I, has been replaced with, how am I perceived? What began as a mirror became a stage. Nietzsche once wrote, man is something that shall be overcome. He envisioned a human who transcends shallow morality, who becomes self-defined through strength and individuality. But our digital evolution did not move upward, it flattened us. The internet promised liberation. Instead, it trapped us in an endless feedback loop of self-surveillance. We've become spectators of our own lives, endlessly refreshing to ensure we still exist. Every click, like, and comment feeds the machinery of dopamine, the neurochemical trickster that keeps us scrolling. Neurologically, it mirrors addiction. Variable rewards, intermittent reinforcement, endless anticipation. It's the same mechanism that drives gamblers to pull the lever one more time, believing the next hit might bring satisfaction. But unlike gambling, what's at stake isn't money, it's identity. Arthur Schopenhauer might say we are driven not by rational will but by a blind, restless striving and insatiable hunger for validation. And like all appetites of the will, it can never truly be fulfilled. Each new burst of attention soothes the anxiety for a moment, only to deepen the void. The digital self becomes a modern form of the will to exist, frantic, insecure, and endlessly consuming itself. Aldous Huxley foresaw a world, not oppressed by tyranny, but seduced by pleasure. A world where we would come to love our servitude, to feel free while enslaved by our own cravings. That prophecy is no longer fiction. The digital realm offers a buffet of dopamine and distraction, and we, mistaking comfort for freedom, willingly indulge. And yet, beneath all of this, there is something profoundly existential. Jean-Paul Sartre believed that freedom is both our greatest gift and our greatest burden, that we are condemned to be free. But in the digital age, we have outsourced that burden. We let algorithms curate our choices, trends dictate our tastes, and strangers validate our worth. The freedom to define ourselves has been replaced by the convenience of being defined. You were born into a system that promised connection but thrives on disconnection. You were told your voice matters, but only if it fits the algorithmic mood of the moment. You were given tools for expression that subtly taught you to imitate. The hidden problem isn't technology itself, it's the ancient human fear of being unseen. The digital world simply learned how to monetize it. What began as a mirror of the self became a machine that rewrites it. And now, most people don't notice how deeply it has written over them. But there are cracks forming, quiet moments when the performance falters, when you sense the ghostly divide between your lived experience and your digital reflection. That uneasy feeling is not a glitch, it's a signal, the psyche whispering that something is wrong, because the deeper question isn't how we use technology, but how technology uses us. Led in. To understand the true cost of this invisible manipulation, we must explore what it does to our minds, our relationships, and our very sense of reality. The consequences are not loud, they are silent, pervasive, and far more dangerous than we realize. There's a strange quiet that lives beneath the constant noise of the digital world, a silence you only notice when you put the phone down. It feels like withdrawal, like stepping out of a dream that seemed more vivid than life itself. That's when it hits you. The digital world didn't just take your attention, it took something far more precious. It took your presence. The first consequence of your digital identity isn't just distraction, it's dislocation. You live everywhere and nowhere at once. You could be surrounded by people, yet still scrolling half here, half elsewhere, fractured between the physical and the digital. Your body exists in the room, but your consciousness drifts through networks of endless projection. You are both the actor and the audience, the watcher and the watched. Psychologically, this duality fragments the self. The human mind was never meant to sustain multiple versions of identity simultaneously: the authentic, the social, the professional, the aesthetic. Each demands consistency, yet all contradict. What you share on one platform might offend another. What earns praise today might bring outrage tomorrow. The self becomes strategic, not sincere. Jung might say the persona has swallowed the soul. Neurologically, this fragmentation exhausts you. Studies show that the constant switching between tasks, apps, and identities floods the brain with dopamine while depleting serotonin, the neurotransmitter responsible for stability and contentment. The result is a paradoxical cocktail of stimulation and emptiness. You're constantly on, but never truly alive. You chase meaning in pixels and find only motion. This psychological fatigue breeds a new kind of loneliness, not the absence of connection, but the pollution of it. You communicate endlessly, but rarely connect. Messages replace conversations, hearts replace words. You scroll through curated intimacy while forgetting how to sit in silence with another human being. Relationships become mirrors reflecting the same fear. Do you see me? Am I enough? The digital self feeds on performance, and every performance requires an audience. That's why solitude feels unbearable now, not because it's lonely, but because it lacks applause. You've been conditioned to measure your existence by metrics that have nothing to do with meaning. And so, you post again, hoping to feel real. But here's the cruel irony. The more you seek recognition, the more invisible you become. Every attempt to stand out merges you deeper into the mass. Algorithms reward conformity disguised as uniqueness. Your rebellion becomes trend, your individuality commodified into aesthetic. The system doesn't punish defiance, it consumes it, repackages it, and sells it back to you as identity. This is how control works now, not through force, but through seduction. You willingly offer your desires, your attention, your data, because it feels good. And yet, beneath that pleasure, something ancient stirs a low hum of existential anxiety. You feel it when you close the app and can't remember what you just consumed. You feel it when you look into a screen and wonder which part of you it's reflecting back. Fyodor Dostoevsky once wrote that man is so addicted to systems of control that he will destroy his own freedom just to prove he exists. The digital identity offers the illusion of empowerment, while chaining the psyche to invisible masters, algorithms that predict your behavior before you even think it. And the tragedy is that this system doesn't need to deceive you, it only needs to keep you comfortable. Aldous Huxley was right: oppression no longer requires chains, when comfort can do the job better. A mind distracted is a mind pacified. A soul that performs endlessly has no energy left for rebellion. The unseen consequence is spiritual erosion. You forget how to be still, how to feel deeply, how to exist without witness. Your attention, once sacred, once the birthplace of creativity and self-awareness, becomes the commodity of the century. You don't lose your soul all at once. You lose it in notifications, in half-read thoughts, in the endless hum of engagement that drowns out your inner voice. You lose it by degrees until one day, you realize the person online isn't a reflection anymore. It's a replacement, and that realization, when it comes, can either break you or awaken you. Lead in, because within this quiet crisis lies the seed of rebellion. The moment you see the illusion clearly, you face a choice to remain comfortably enslaved, or to begin the difficult, radical act of reclaiming your mind. Freedom does not begin with escape. It begins with awareness. The first rebellion against your digital identity is not deleting your account, it's remembering who you are without it. Imagine standing in front of a mirror that no longer reflects your face, but your mind. What would you see? The digital self thrives on illusion, the illusion of importance, connection, and control. To dismantle it, you must be willing to face the raw truth. Your need for validation is not weakness, it is ancient. It is the child within you, still searching for proof of existence. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the unacknowledged part of the psyche that drives your behaviors from the dark. Your digital persona is the modern expression of that shadow. It's not evil, it's misunderstood. The likes, the comments, the curated smiles, they are your unconscious reaching out for significance in a world that forgot how to see deeply. The rebellion begins by turning toward that shadow and asking, what am I really seeking? You might discover it isn't attention you crave, but recognition. Not validation, but love. Not followers, but belonging. These are not digital needs, they are human ones. The tragedy is that modern systems have learned to imitate their fulfillment. To reclaim your selfhood, you must learn to distinguish the imitation from the real. Start with silence, not as punishment, but as purification. Turn off the screen and feel the tremor of withdrawal, that restless urge to check, scroll, refresh. That discomfort is sacred. It's the sound of your mind detoxifying. Stay with it. Beneath it lies something vast, the space where your real self has been waiting. Nietzsche spoke of the Übermensch, the individual who creates their own meaning in a meaningless world. This is the spirit of digital rebellion, to live by inner values rather than algorithmic ones. Every time you resist the impulse to perform, you strengthen that will. Every time you choose truth over image, you break the invisible chain. But rebellion is not retreat. It's not about abandoning the digital world, it's about mastering it. Technology, like the psyche, is not the enemy, it's a mirror. The key is to use it consciously, not compulsively. Post when you mean it. Speak when it matters. Refuse the urge to exist merely to be seen. Viktor Frankl, who survived the abyss of the concentration camps, wrote that meaning is found not in pleasure or success, but in responsibility, in the choice to shape one's own life even amid suffering. In a world engineered to consume your attention, your greatest act of resistance is to choose how and why you give it. Ask yourself before every post, every share, every scroll, is this an expression of who I am, or a performance of who I wish to be? That single question can dismantle years of unconscious conditioning. And understand this, the system thrives on predictability. The algorithm knows your fears, your pleasures, your triggers. To break free, you must become unpredictable again. You must become human again, flawed, inconsistent, unoptimized. Refuse the demand to be a brand. Refuse to polish your soul for approval. Let your contradictions breathe. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that liberation from suffering begins when we turn inward and cease chasing the illusions of the will. Likewise, your digital liberation begins when you stop chasing the phantom of significance and start embracing the quiet dignity of being. There will be moments when the silence feels unbearable, when invisibility feels like death. That's when you'll know you're on the right path. Because freedom is not the absence of discomfort, it's the ability to endure it without running back to the illusion. One day, you'll open your phone, scroll through the chaos, and feel no pull, no envy, no hunger, no compulsion. You'll see the endless parade of curated selves and understand it for what it is. A collective dream, fragile and beautiful, but not you. And in that moment of stillness, when you no longer need to be seen to exist, that's when you'll realize you were never lost. You were simply buried beneath your own reflection. Lead in. Yet even this rebellion, powerful as it is, leads to a deeper revelation, a final truth that transcends the struggle between the real and the digital. Because once the illusion dissolves, what remains is something far more profound, the essence of being itself. Imagine, for a moment, that the digital world goes dark. No more screens, no feeds, no trace of your online self. The silence is absolute, vast, unsettling, and pure. You feel disoriented at first, as if you've been amputated from the collective heartbeat of the world. But slowly, something extraordinary begins to happen. The noise in your head fades, the constant hum of comparison, validation, performance gone. What replaces it isn't loneliness, it's clarity. You begin to sense what was always there, hidden beneath the layers of digital noise, the being behind the doing, the witness behind the identity. It doesn't need likes or recognition. It doesn't post, scroll, or perform. It simply is. This is the part of you that technology could never capture, the observer of thoughts, not the one consumed by them. In the language of Jung, it is the self, the totality of who you are, both light and shadow, conscious and unconscious. In the language of philosophy, it is existence before definition. Sartre once said, "Existence precedes essence," meaning that before you become anything, you already are. Your digital persona was always an imitation of that truth, a desperate attempt to simulate being through appearance. The final realization, then, is paradoxical. You never lost yourself to your digital identity. You only forgot that you existed beyond it. The self you built online was never a prison, it was a projection, a shadow on the cave wall. You mistook it for the Sunday. Friedrich Nietzsche envisioned the eternal recurrence, the idea that life repeats itself infinitely. Ask yourself, if you had to live this same existence, with every scroll, every like, every moment of digital anxiety, over and over for eternity, would you say yes? Most wouldn't. But that's precisely the measure of freedom he spoke of. To live so truthfully that you could affirm your life eternally. The digital self, driven by fear and imitation, cannot say yes. The authentic self can. And that authenticity, that raw, unfiltered existence is terrifying, because it has no audience, no applause, no safety net of approval. It demands that you face the abyss directly, with no filter to soften its gaze. Yet, in that confrontation lies transcendence. When you stop performing, you finally start living. When you no longer seek to be seen, you finally begin to see. Arthur Schopenhauer believed that all suffering arises from desire, the endless striving for what we don't have. The digital identity is the purest form of that striving, an endless chase for reflection, relevance, and recognition. The moment you stop chasing, suffering dissolves. You return to what the mystics called the still point, the center where the noise of the world cannot reach. Aldous Huxley warned that we would become enslaved by pleasure, that comfort would lull us into forgetting what it means to be human. But perhaps, through awareness, we can reclaim that humanity. Perhaps the very tools that distracted us can become mirrors of awakening. It is not the device that imprisons you, but your unconscious attachment to it. Once you see it clearly, it loses power over you. So what, then, is the ultimate truth behind your digital identity? It is this: the image you created online is not your enemy, it is your teacher. It shows you, with brutal honesty, what parts of yourself you've neglected, what fears you've hidden, what desires you've inflated. The persona was never the problem, your identification with it was. The self you present to the world is only a mask, and masks are not lies, they are symbols. They point to something deeper. When you recognize this, you no longer need to destroy your digital self. You simply stop mistaking it for your essence. You can still create, still connect, still share, but now from a place of being, not becoming. You are no longer the performer in the theater of perception, but the playwright, the observer, the consciousness that gives it meaning. And in that quiet, something shifts. You no longer need to prove that you exist. You realize that you always have, even in silence, even unseen. The rebellion was never about escaping technology. It was about remembering your humanity. The final liberation is not digital detox, but spiritual integration. To live connected, but not consumed. To express without losing yourself in expression. To see the world clearly, and still choose to love it. So when the noise returns, as it always will, and the world tempts you to perform once more, Pause. Remember the stillness behind the signal. Remember the part of you that watches without wanting, that exists without proving. That is you, the real you, the one who cannot be coded, captured, or quantified, the one who has been waiting for your attention all along. And perhaps the ultimate paradox is this: the moment you stop needing to be seen is the moment the world finally begins to see you.